What's up, DIY Nation, and welcome back to YouFloor, the channel bringing you tips and tricks to help you with your next flooring project. Now today we are in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, and we are on a stair job. That's right, it's been a while since we did a stair job, so I figured why not whip out the camera and show you some of those tips and tricks. We got something a little bit different today. The customer wanted us to, instead of floor her landing, she actually wanted us to put stair treads on the landing so that it would look like one big giant slab of wood, I guess like a big old giant cutting board. So we bought some stair treads. We're gonna go with the 1-inch treads. You guys have seen us put those down. They're red oak, and she wanted us to match the floor here. I don't know if you could see or not, maybe a little bit blurry back there. But anyway, she wanted us to match the floor. So Kelly is out there taking the stairs out of the truck as we speak, laying them out front, getting them ready for the stain, and she's gonna go through a couple processes to try to match those up, but generally she gets pretty close, so I gotta give her credit for that one. Me, I'm gonna get in here and take a look at these. To me, it looks like it is 2x12 treads. Now in the past, I've done stairs a certain way, and I thought about doing them different depending on how the risers are. If the risers are in good shape and they're straight across, I may do things a little bit different, and I'll explain to you why I'm going to be doing that. So, not sure how this is gonna go. I'm gonna have to get in here and rip this carpet out and see what's underneath, and then we'll make some decisions. But we've already bought the treads, and there is also a return that needs to be put on down here at the bottom. So I'll have to box that out. Some of you guys asked me how to do that quite a while back, and today you're gonna get to see that. All right guys, I think I've talked enough and you're like, Z, what's going on? Get some work done. All right, I'm gonna go tear these stairs out and I'll holler back at you. See ya. All right, so just looking at these, you guys can see that. I mean, they look like they're 2x12, so I'm gonna go with that. Basically, to get started here, we're gonna go grab a razor knife and a pry bar, a hammer, and maybe even a flathead screwdriver and get this carpet pulled. Then we can take a look at it and see what we got to deal with. All right guys, let's roll. Oh, we got lucky, look. Look at that. So that's separate, and that's cool. That's cool with me. We probably will put a riser right there, but right now that gives me enough carpet to bend that over, make a stair nose out of it, and actually come out over top of the riser. So that'll happen later. All right, this should come out pretty easy. Oh, and they did it in pieces. So if it's like this all the way down, it'll definitely be easy. It's not as easy when they do it in one big giant long runner, because then you're kind of squeezing it in between the walls and working it down. But hey man, so far so good. You know what I don't have is pair of pliers. I definitely need a pair of pliers. I'm gonna grab those. Never can have too many razor knives. I said pliers, but these dikes, these are the key. Looks like it was just that first one. All right guys, so we got all the carpet and all the tack strip removed. Now we need to take some measurements to find out exactly how we're gonna try to do these steps. Now, if you're not familiar with how stairs are even laid out or how they're built, I wanna go over a couple things that you might wanna take into consideration when you're covering your stairs, or if you're gonna be taking them up and redoing them. Codes. Technically, you're not really supposed to have a stair taller than 7 3/4. Now, in some places they say 7 5/8, but typically I've built them at 7 3/4. I've gotten them passed, and it's not really that big of a deal. What you don't want to do is have your stairs taller than 8 inches. I'm going to take a couple measurements from this and see where we're going to go, whether we're going to put our new treads on top of the old 2x12s, or if we're going to have to pull these, and if we're going to have to fur some of them up to make it work. So I'm going to check at the bottom. All right, so let's take a look at what we have right here. This is the first tread, and it's going to a landing, but we also have a set of steps up there. You have to take the thickness of your flooring in account when you're trying to figure out the height of your riser. All right, guys, so we did a little bit of measuring and some investigating. Here we are at the bottom, and I haven't really decided if I want to put 1-inch treads just on top of those treads yet, or if I want to pull them. I'm definitely gonna have to pull this one and then build it back up. Now, once I do that, you can see that that over there is gonna cause an issue, so we decided that this needed to be raised another inch. So you see, once you put an inch on here, it shortens this height. But once you put an inch on there, it makes it back to the same. I hope that makes sense, because we're just taking it away an inch and adding an inch. So if you take a look at this step down here, now I'm gonna take a look at the
the framing down here, because it says 5 3/4. So if we add 1.5 inches, that's 7 1/4. So technically it's supposed to be 7 1/4. If I laid 1 inch on top of this right here, that would make that thing 8 1/4 inches tall from here to here. So we're going to take it off. Now, if by doing that at 5 3/4, if I add back just 1 inch, that's going to give me a step of 6 3/4. So we want to try to raise that a little bit. We decided to add 1 inch to that. So at 5 3/4 to 6 3/4, giving us a new step of
7 3/4.
All right, guys, so check this out. I got the laser set up, and I don't know if you can see that or not, but right there, we're at 7 3/4 from the finished floor to where we're trying to bring this, okay? So down here at the bottom, we said it was 5 3/4. We want to add 2 inches to this. So we want to add 1 inch first strip, and then we want to add our 1 inch tread. So what does that mean? That means the top of the step is going to be where my green line is. Does that make sense? So measuring from my green line up to the top of this landing right here, I have
6 3/4.
If I add the 1 inch treads on top of here, that's going to bring us to 7 3/4. So from the finished floor down here to the top of step, 7 3/4. From the top of this step to the top of this landing, 7 3/4. I think we're getting somewhere. But that tells me we're going to probably have to take some of these treads off. All right, guys, so we made it past the first step and the landing. Now we got to figure out how we're going to tackle the rest of these steps. Remember, we don't want them to be 8 inches tall. We definitely don't want them to be too short, but I don't think we got a problem with that. We got to figure out how we're going to make this transition from here to here. Now, I want to measure from this landing right here to the top of this step and subtract 1 inch. You guys know why, because we already decided we're going to put 1 inch on this floor, right? So right now, with it being at 7.5 inches and me adding this inch down here, that gives me 6.5 inches. 6.5 plus 1 inch, that's 7.5 inches. I'm not mad at that at all. So that means we wouldn't have to take these off at all, but I might want to cut the nose, and let me explain to you why. If it wasn't for this issue right here, we may be able to get away with it, and we still may be able to get away with it, but I know that these are, this stair nose right here hangs over. It says 7/8 here, but up at the top it's 1 inch and 1/8. Right there it's 1 inch, and then 1 inch and 1/8 as you work your way up. I don't know who cut these steps, but they're a little bit off all the way around. So with that being said, if this is 7/8 of an inch, hold on one sec. If I cut that nose off right there and I add back 1/2 inch of a riser, then the nose that I stick on there is going to be right up against this thing. I was really hoping to not do that, but it looks like we might not have a choice if that's what we have to do. All right, guys, as bad as I hate to say it, in order for this to work out the way I want it to work out, we are going to have to cut these back to here, cap them, and I may have to cap this first one here with a 1/4 inch riser, and then cut off a 1/4 inch in the back just so it'll slide in and be real nice. You won't be able to tell as I go up the stairs. A couple of these, like this one has a hump right here, and then there's one up here. You can see it kind of has a swoop to it. And then the one at the very top, it definitely has a swoop to it. That one does too. That one does too. So generally I would take these off and split them in half and you know, glue them back down in 2x4. But I may have to cut these right where they are, because who put all these freaking nails in here? And I mean, it is on every single one of these. That's part of the reason why I decided not to tear these things up. Luckily for me, the math worked out, because Jiminy Christmas. All right, guys. Moving on. As I said, a couple of these will probably have to be cut down the middle because they're bowed or humped, but we figured that into our equation. All right, guys, let's get started. First thing I'm gonna have to do is, since we are leaving these, I'm gonna have to scrape all these staples and fuzzies off. So that's what I'll be doing for about the next 30 minutes to an hour. And once I get done with that, I'll get back with you. So we got all the staples cleared off of the steps, except for this one. What's that guy doing there? Okay, now we have all the staples. All right, so as we explained, the way we're going to be able to make this work is
Looks like every single one of these steps, all the way from the bottom all the way to the top, are going to be 7 3/4 of an inch. I don't know how we managed to do that, but we did. And the first step is to remove this step right here. And then we'll go through and check each one of these for bows or humps, as we said earlier, and cut down the middle, and then take necessary action in order to get those things flattened out before we put the new treads on top. All right, guys, let's get this thing pulled. I haven't used one of these in a while, but this is a cat's paw, so you can really dig down in underneath the nails and get them pulled. Imagine having to pull all those nails and those stairs up there. It's like 8 nails per side and in the middle. That's like 24 nails I'd have to pull per step. Goodness gracious, who built that? Put 3 more. Okay. All right, let's see if we can get underneath here and get this thing up now. I believe we can do it. Alright guys, there's the first one removed. Alright guys, so I got this first tread off of it here, and as you can see, this is what we're going to be putting our 1 inch on top of, and then the 1 inch tread to build it up. Now I am going to be using PL3X, so I'll probably have to scrape some of this glue off. But you can see right here, we're at 10 1/4 inches deep on where that is. I mean, that's pretty standard. Generally you want to have 10 inches, and over here it's like 10 1/8, so I imagine it's just, you know, we've got a gap right there. I'm pretty sure I can close that back up, make it 10. So with 10, and then our treads out there are like 11 7/8, I can go ahead and wrap this thing in 1/2 inch and still have a pretty good overhang with my nose. So that's the route we're gonna do. You can see that's tall, so we're really gonna have to make up some room there. Not to mention we're adding another inch on top of that. So. All right, then over here, as you can see, I've made a mark here to get started. It's kind of hard to tell. Maybe if I go from this angle, here you can see it's curved like this, and so it's not ever going to go down because you know that's right through here. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to cut these in half. Now, originally I was going to try to pull all of these because that's generally what I do. It only has 2 and maybe 3 nails, like 1, 2, 3. But as you can see, whoever put these in, I guess they were really struggling with the coved and bowed, because I mean look at how many nails are in the back of that right there. And so I felt that if I tried to pull this thing, there's no telling what kind of damage I could do to the stringer because it has a million holes in it right now. So I'm going to leave those in. We're going to cut the noses off of these. There's some like this right here that are flat that all I'm going to have to do is cut the nose off of, but the ones that are coved like that right there, you can see where it's not as bad, that one, but it is coved up, so that means it goes like this, and then bowed would means it goes like this. And so I'm gonna have to cut those in half, that way it's in 2 pieces, and then glue this front piece down, and then it should be straight enough for me to put my 1 inchers on. That is the plan going forward. So I'm gonna go down and grab myself a straight edge, sawzall, circular saw, and maybe even an oscillating tool. That will be my best friend today. All right, guys, I'll check back in with you. Let's get these things cut.
All right guys, so you can see what I'm gonna have to do is go ahead and I already cut them all with the circular saw as far as it would go. I got my sawzall and I'm cutting right up, it looks like right up to the 1.5 inches, which is the stringer, and I'm gonna finish it off with an oscillating tool. I know you guys don't wanna hang out and watch me cut every one of these, but that's what I'm about to do. So I'll get back with you once they're all cut and we'll figure out what our next step is. All right guys, here we go.
Yeah, so let's go outside and see how Kelly's doing. She's working on staining the steps.
What's up? Can't, this is too long.
Well, they shouldn't fall over.
I mean, even if they do, they're right here.
Yeah, they should be fine.
Okay.
Here's Kelly. She's going to take these home and probably stain them tonight. She's got what she needs as far as color goes. So
Sorta, that's true.
And I wanted to show you guys something different between what we used to use and what you can use. We used to use the solid pine, and these are the engineered, so you can see they have a veneer on the outside of them. Now this one here is a solid oak tread because it has our return, and you can tell the difference because it doesn't have the veneer. Here's a good one where you can actually see it, because the inside board is real light, but the veneer, the oak veneer that they've glued to the outside is a red oak. So it looks like you almost have about just a little bit less than an eighth and way more thicker than a 16th of a veneer on there. So you could sand those two and get them really smooth without having to worry about getting down into that inner layer. But anyway, all right, so that's it. We're gonna get this thing packed up. I'm gonna get inside and clean my mess up. We'll be back tomorrow to get things rolling. Hopefully you'll see some progress, but I doubt it. You know, the staining and the painting the risers and cutting them and all that, that takes a little bit of time. The lady was like, send me some progress pics. I'm like, okay, there you go. Anyway, all right guys, that's gonna do it for today. I'll check back with you tomorrow.